one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have a motion to sit as a licensing board?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
this is Kevin McAllister again. Before you do that, you might want call for a motion to seal the minutes, and then followed by a statement by you that no votes were taken in executive session.
Mr.
Correct.
President, I move that we seal the minutes of the executive session.
Do I have a second?
Marvel, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Marvel, aye.
Scott Bill Hurst, aye.
Moffett, aye.
Davis, aye.
Do I have a motion to seal the minutes of the executive session?
I think I just made that motion, didn't I?
Yep. And I took down, I believe, Council President Moffett would report that there were no votes taken during the session.
Yes. Council President Moffett, that no votes were taken in an executive session. Do I have a motion to sit as a licensing board?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Marvel, aye.
Moffett, aye.
Scott Bill Hurst, aye.
Davis, aye.
I'd like to open a hearing on renewal of the following liquor licenses continued from November 16th, 2020. Class BV, Brick Oven Restaurant, Keith Knott, President, Brick Oven Restaurant of Ashaway, Inc., 209 Main Street, Ashaway, Rhode Island, 02804. Is the applicant or representative present? I don't see any hands up.
Did call. I think they did call in last night.
And I dropped off the agenda last Friday for both applicants.
If you are a representative or an applicant for Brick Oven Restaurant, please raise your hand, which is *9.
I would think that we should hold this to later in the agenda in case somebody.
Is this
calls.
representative from Brick Oven Restaurant?
I mentioned it to one of the waitresses today when I was there. And I don't know, I think this thing is a little confusing because I guess called before and because we had like 3 meetings and it was a little confusing. So I would like to make a motion that this be put further down in the agenda in case somebody does call in and we can address it then. So I make that a motion, please.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Scott Bill Hurst, aye.
Steve
Marvel,
Moffett,
aye.
aye.
Davis, aye.
Motion passes. Okay. Class B Limited, Main Street Pizza, Christopher Onsky, President, CHS LLC, 229 Main Street, Ashaway, Rhode Island, 02804. Is the applicant or representative present? If so, *9. *6 to unmute yourself, please. Go ahead.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
I'm here. Sorry, I just can't figure out how to do this.
Okay, hold on one second. All right, we're going to discuss, consider, and vote to grant renewal to each license discuss, consider, and vote to grant renewal on this license subject to all state town regulations being met and all town taxes current to prior use. Lisa, are they all current?
Yes,
There.
everything was up to date.
Everything's up to date. Is there any discussion?
I would just ask who's present.
Who is present, may I ask?
Justin, Madden.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And he represents Main Street Pizza.
He does, Bill. Hey, Scott.
Okay, I would, do I make just some one motion? Okay, I'm going to make a motion that the Class B limited license be granted to Main Street Pizza, 229 Main Street, Ashway, Rhode Island, 02804.
And that would be subject to all state and town regulations being met and all town taxes prior to issue.
I include that in my motion. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Scott Bill Hurst.
Marvel, I second that.
Bob? Is that Bob?
Yeah, Marvel, I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moffat, aye.
Scott Bill Hurst, aye.
Davis, aye.
Motion passes.
Excellent.
Steve, there is another hand raised from a cell phone number from before. I don't know if that is the representative from for Brick Oven.
Sure.
I think they need to unmute themselves, though.
Yes. If your phone number is 401-364-9263, please hit *6 to unmute yourself. Or
Not seeing the, I don't see the phone number on it.
*6. Phone number 401-364-9263. Is this Brick Oven? If so, *6 to unmute yourself.
Hello,
Yes. May I ask who's speaking?
Keith Now from the Brick Oven Restaurant.
Excellent. Thank you. So I'll read it again.
No, we're good. I mean, I heard it all before. I just couldn't get through.
Okay. Well, I'd like to discuss, consider, and vote to grant renewal to each license subject to all state and town regulations being met and all town taxes current prior to use.
Oh, that's fine. Yes.
Yeah, unless the public has any comment, I probably know the Brick Oven better than anybody on the council without exaggeration, but I'm there about every day of my life. But
Next time I'll just give you a picture with it. Say, okay, do it.
Excellent.
Are you making a motion? Or
I'll make a motion that the DV license for Brick Oven Restaurant be granted with all the requirements necessary, subject to approval of those requirements, the normal requirements.
this Council Geary, I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Marvel, aye.
Moffat, aye.
Scott Bill Hurst, aye.
Davis, aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Am I done? You have a good night?
You are. Good night. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Next up, holiday sales license. Opening a hearing for a new application for holiday sales license. Village Wine and Spirits, 26 Alton Bradford Road, filed by Venkat Dota Panini, M2 Wines, LLC. Discuss and consider a motion to grant approval to the license in question, subject to all state and town regulations being met and all town taxes current to prior use.
There's no obligation for the gentleman to be present, so you can go ahead and consider your motion.
Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. President, I move that we grant the license in question subject to all state and town regulations being met and all town taxes current prior to issue.
I second. Marvel, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Marvel, aye.
Moffat, aye.
Scott Bill Hurst, aye.
Davis, aye.
Motion passes. Next, do I have a motion to adjourn as a licensing board and reconvene as a council?
So moved. Scott Bill Hurst, so moved.
Marvel, second.
All in favor?
Aye. Scott Bill Hurst, aye.
Moffat, aye.
Marvel, aye.
Davis, aye.
Next, consent agenda.
I'd like to pull the town council remote meeting minutes. The 7:30, November 16th, 2020, 7:30 p.m. town council remote meeting minutes pulled. I'll move that the rest of the consent agenda be adopted. Scott Billhurst.
Do I have a second?
Council Geary, second.
All in favor?
Aye. It's probably a very small point, but on page 6 of the last meeting minutes, it's on the bottom, it says Frank D. Landolfi, and it's Frank T. And I know Frank, if you know Frank Landolfi, he's so proud of the FTL. It's actually on license plates on his car. So I know the T in his name is very important to him, and I'm sure he's listening and probably might find it amusing or appreciative I mentioned it.
The motion's been seconded. All in favor?
Scott Billhurst, aye.
Moffat, aye.
Marvel, aye.
Davis, aye.
Motion passes. Next up, Council President report. Message of condolence to Chief Palmer and family. I wanted to express our condolences as a council to Chief Palmer and his family, and that our thoughts are with him and his family at this time.
Yeah. I would like to say that I would like to adjourn the council meeting at the end in memory of Gardner Palmer. That's his father's name, as well as the people who lost their life on December 7th, 1941, when Pearl Harbor was attacked. And interestingly, next year is the 80th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. And we still have members of the World War II generation still with us. They're, of course, in advanced age, and they're leaving us quickly. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Next up on the agenda is the town manager report.
Good evening, council. How are you tonight?
Good.
This is Brian Ross. Good. This is Brian Rosso. So I put together a couple items on the agenda. First and foremost, a COVID-19 staggered work schedule. I believe you all received an email and have all responded to that email. So I'm sure you're well aware of what we did. I thought it was in the best interest of the town to stagger the work schedule of town employees, specifically the clerical employees who are in small offices. I think it was in the best interest for the fact that if we did have an outbreak or someone in the town that tested positive for COVID and spread it to another member, we'd have to shut down the whole department. So this way we'd have, if we stagger the schedule and, someone does get COVID, unfortunately, we would end up being able to keep the office open with the other employee. So I thought it was in the best interest of the town to do that. I don't want to do it for the long term. I was thinking initially for the governor's pause, and we'll see what happens with the numbers in the state over the next week. But it doesn't look good in the state, so we'll have to see what she says next Thursday, or I think she's speaking on Wednesday. So we'll see what she says, and then we'll have to make a decision if we want to continue to do the staggered work schedule at that point in time. But I just think, again, it was in the best interest of the town, because if we did have someone in the town employee get it and it spread throughout, say, the town hall, we're shutting down offices, as opposed to the current situation where it gives us a little bit of a safety net. The other item I wanted to bring to the council's attention was the appointment of the Public Works Director. So I interviewed 5 candidates, and our previous foreman, Dave Caswell, seemed to be the best candidate in my opinion. He's been with the town for 13 years. He's been the foreman for 9. So he has a great rapport with the current Public Works Department. Personally, working with him as the acting town manager capacity over the last month, he's done a great job, specifically with the COVID stuff. You know, we've had a couple scares in town where employees had tested positive, and his response was very quick. And he's just kind of followed through on everything I've asked of him. And previous to this last month, you know, even working as the finance director, you know, he's always been easy to work with. You know, he gets the job done, and I think he's the town's very fortunate to have him. So I'm not sure if you guys had anything for me on those two topics, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
I just want to thank you, Brian, for stepping up to the plate and being the acting town manager. I know Bill McGarry, previous town manager, had a very high regard for you, and I look forward to you moving the town forward in these difficult times, and I thank you for your leadership.
Thanks, Scott.
Steve, this is Sharon. I
Yes,
wanted
Sharon.
to tell Brian that I absolutely concur with his appointing Dave Caswell. He has responded to me and my neighbors about the tree cutting and everything. So he's a great employee.
Thank you for sharing that, Karen. Sharon.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, Scott.
Can they hear me
Can you hear
online?
me? Hold on.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Sure. Yes.
Can people in the audience hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Brian, this is Councilor Gary. I just want to say thank you for stepping up to the plate and everything you do every day. Excellent choice on Dave Caswell. He's an asset to the town. As far as the COVID stuff, like we all deal with, it's a day-to-day thing. You know, people just gonna be able to swing with the changes, because I know sometimes things change twice a day, even in our town and even the stuff I do with the company I work for. But I just want to say thank you for your diligence and your guidance, and thank you for what you do.
Thanks, Councilman.
Thank you, Mike. And I want to reflect those same comments that Councilor Geary just spoke to. You're very responsive, and I appreciate the time that you give.
Thanks, President.
Is that all you have, Brian? Yep.
Yep, that's it for me. Yep.
Next on the agenda, council appointments. Appointment of prosecution's lawyer.
Mr. President, I'm going to abstain. I'm not going to recuse. I had a matter in municipal court quite a while ago, and I think it's best that I'm not going to recuse, but I'm going to abstain from voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Do we have any discussion on this? Do I have a motion to appoint Michael Cozzolino as the prosecution's lawyer?
Marvel, so moved.
All in favor?
Yep. Geary, second.
Moffett? All in favor?
Aye.
Moffett, aye.
Marvel, aye.
Davis, aye.
Scott Bill Hurst, abstain.
Motion passes. Next, appointment of probate judge. Linda Urso. Do I have any discussion?
I move that M. Linda Urso, Esquire, be reappointed probate judge of the town of Hopkinton. Scott Bill Hurst.
This is Councilor Geary. I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Scott Bill
Moffett?
Hurst, aye.
Moffett, aye.
Marvel, aye.
Davis, aye.
Motion passes. Next on the agenda, old business. Council discussion to fill the remaining town council representative appointments to boards, commissions, and committees. Bob Marvel, do you have any?
Yeah, unless someone else is interested, I'd like to be the liaison for the land trust.
So be it. Bob Marvel will be the liaison for the land trust. Scott, do you have anything considering further on in this agenda you're going to be?
Yes, I'm going to ask if we do resurrect it. I want to be the liaison to the Committee on Aging.
Okay, then I will appoint Scott Billhurst, the liaison to the Committee on Aging. Are there any other requests for liaison appointments or any other interest?
Mr. President, what's left on the list?
What's left on the list? Hold on 1 second. Let me take a look.
I think we pretty much nailed it down the first day.
Well, there's a couple more. We have the Police Commission. We have the Historic District Commission.
I'll take that.
Then I appoint Michael Geary to the Historic District Commission. If there is no other request, then I will.
Marvel, I've got a question. On the Police Commission, Lisa, how often does that meet? And
once per month, 3:30 p.m. Second Thursday of the month. Their meeting this month has been canceled.
okay, I will step up and be the liaison for that. If no one else wants to.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. So Bob Marlowe appointed as town council liaison to the Police Commission. Anyone else have anything else?
What this Bob Marvel again. One other question, Lisa. Do those commission meetings have meeting minutes afterwards? So I didn't see any posted.
They are behind in getting me their minutes, but there have been a couple of cancellations of their meetings as well.
Okay. I was just looking for some of the meeting minutes to familiarize myself with their work.
On the Secretary of State's website.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next, new business. Discuss, consider, possibly vote to adopt a resolution of the Hopkinton Town Council relating to state assistance during the COVID-19 emergency. I will read the resolution as it reads. Resolution of the Town Council relating to state assistance during the COVID-19 emergency. Whereas the governor and municipal leaders across the state have declared a state of emergency as a result of COVID-19, and whereas municipal leaders have worked cooperatively and productively with the state administration to respond to and contain the virus, and whereas the town of Hopkinton has incurred expenses associated with its efforts to respond to and contain the virus, and whereas cities and towns have been given guidance that there will be delays in receiving reimbursements from the Federal Emergency Management Agency for qualifying COVID-19 related expenses. And whereas the state has received $1.25 billion under the CARES Act Coronavirus Relief Fund to cover state and municipal costs associated with the emergency. And whereas the U.S. Department of Treasury has stated that the Coronavirus Relief Fund may be used for COVID-19 expenses not otherwise reimbursable by FEMA, including public safety expenditures, personal costs associated with COVID-19 response, and mandatory local match for expenses submitted to FEMA. And whereas, according to the National League of Cities, Rhode Island is one of only 3 states that have not distributed a portion of their coronavirus relief fund to local governments. And whereas cities and towns across Rhode Island face potential revenue risk resulting from the economic impacts of COVID-19, including a possible reduction in state aid, lower collection rates of property taxes, and business activity revenue losses, all of which could exceed $100 million. And whereas the state has withheld scheduled state aid payments in the current fiscal year by over $50 million through the beginning of August. And whereas the state has not yet completed a budget for fiscal year 2021, creating an even greater uncertainty about expected aid to local governments and schools. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this council calls on the governor to execute a plan for distributing CRF funds to cities and towns, taking into account expenses incurred and revenues lost by each city and town as a result of the emergency. And be it further resolved that the council urges the General Assembly to fully fund the state education funding formula for the fiscal year 2021 projected levels and to support total state aid to local governments at the same aggregate levels as in fiscal year 2020.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that the Hopkins Town Council does adopt this resolution.
Do I have a second?
Mr. President.
This is Sharon Davis. I would give a second to that.
That was Scott Bill Hurst who made the motion. I got to remember to do that. I apologize.
That's fine. All in favor?
Aye.
Marvel.
Scott Bill Hurst, aye.
Moffat, aye.
Davis, aye.
Motion passes. Next up, discussion on senior citizen issues and concerns, including discussion on reactivating the Committee on Aging. Councilor Hurst, you have the floor.
I thank you. The issue is sometimes you should be a little reluctant trying to reactivate any committee in town because it's so tough to get volunteers. As controversy as land use issues are right now with the solar, we still have two vacancies as for an alternate members on the planning board, which are very important appointed board. But I do have some notes, and there's at least two members. Well, there's two members of this council that are 60 years of age or older, and I'm one of them. And I'm 67. And I do belong to both the Richmond and Wesley Senior Center. I haven't been active in the Richmond one, and I've been to events at the Wesley Senior Center. And what has happened in the town of Hopkinton is that I know that there was always a small group that went to the Crandall House. But I think that we really have to address senior issues. We have a significant senior population in town, and somehow we should be able to address some of those needs. Before I get into this full bore, I'd like to remind people that it's income driven, but starting usually in January, senior citizens are entitled to request a reduction in their property taxes depending upon their income. So I think that they should check with the tax assessor after the beginning of the year, make a note that to see if in fact they're eligible and they follow the income guidelines. I think that's the best timely advice I can give people right at this moment in regard to senior issues. Also, I would like to have this committee reorganized because a good active committee can check on the resources, and we could have fairs and other exhibitions in different parts of the town, whether it's in the libraries or the Wood River Health Services or places like that. And we need to, I think, understand our senior population and the services that are available to them. I think the biggest problem with the town of Hopkins, which transcends all age groups, I don't care if you're in school, particularly if you go to Charahoe, because it's transportation. I went to a thing they had with a friend of mine, and the biggest issue was transportation. If living in a small town, because since we don't have public transportation, you're really licked unless you have transportation. That is probably the biggest issue confronting elderly and all people, particularly young people. If they need a ride to get over to Charahoe, they might not have a ride, especially when with both parents working and they don't have a car. And the thing of what I was going to address in recruiting board members, because it is very tough to get people to recruit people, what I was thinking of is if we know that we do have members from Hopkinton, myself, I belong to both Richmond and Wesley Senior Centers, that would be a potential that we could recruit some of those people, and certainly anybody could apply, but potentially we could recruit people because a lot of people don't come out of the woodwork and apply, so we can populate this Committee on Aging so we can get it started. That's just a thought that I've had. And we get that committee, when it once gets organized, we could develop a more detailed charge if it's just decided that's needed. And And I like to to check on what other towns do. I don't think we could really be as sophisticated as obviously Westerly or Richmond has, Dennis McGinnity does quite a job over in Richmond. They have a place above the police station over there, but I think Hopkinen should have some presence for senior citizens, at least at some element, and just see where it goes. But first we have to get a committee of committed people together. And we also have a State Department of Elderly Affairs that deals with a lot of issues impacting the elderly. And of course, there's other sources, whether it's tri-county groups and other nonprofits that work with elderly population. And just as an aside, if any senior citizen is concerned about any benefits they think that, or any person regardless of age, if they're down on their luck or need some help, they should contact United Way at 211, very important number, so that they can get some help and it will put them in the right direction regardless of age. And I'd like to see us do like a sheet or even a pass out on information on elderly or resources that people can do that we can pass out to elderly people and say, and this is what the time frame, like this thing with tax benefits from the town, what the time frame is in the Department of Elderly Affairs and things of that nature. That's something this committee could do. And also have have a web presence on elderly affairs. So those are my views. But first of all, we got to go out and beat the bushes and line up some people. But I was thinking to really start this thing seriously. And like I said, it's tough to get people to volunteer for anything, is to maybe some of the members that belong to the Wesley Senior Center that are Hopkinen residents, people in the Richmond Senior Centers that are Hopkinen residents, maybe even Charlestown. I'm sure that some Hopkinen residents might actually belong down there. They might know somebody, but, and put the word out, put posters at the libraries, Wood River Health Services, in places like that, so we can populate this committee and get this off the ground, because that's the only way I can see doing that. And if you have any leads of people that might serve on such a committee, contact one of the members of the town council. We could talk to them. But usually we talk about things and often and things don't get off the ground. And I think it's a very important thing that we focus on, and something that we should be a priority. And it takes, like I said, we do get the manpower. It'll be a few meetings before they are able to really achieve anything. But just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Does anyone else have any comment to add to this discussion?
Lisa, how many people does it take to be on a committee for Scott?
For that, I believe it's 5. 5.
I would just like to say that, to kind of go with some of the things that Scott said, the elderly don't necessarily have access to computers, to cell phones, and that type of information. So, I mean, I'm not sure if reaching out to, I don't want to say younger families with kids, but, kind of make our approach to everybody and not just the elderly, in the hopes to that this information is possibly shared. You don't have to be an elderly person to help out elderly people.
Well, I mean, a committee could be of all ages, certainly, and hopefully all sections of town. Hopkinton actually consists of 2 main villages, Hope Valley and Ashway, and the people live throughout the town. But, it's tough if you don't have a vehicle, you're really pretty much out of luck in this town unless you know somebody that can take you somewhere. And that's why I think Wood River Health Services, the libraries, even I'm sure one of the restaurants would put up a poster if you're looking for people. But I just thought that, considering that we have 2 active senior centers, Richmond and Wesley, there's a potential that we could get some Hopkins and people from that areas that would be willing to serve. And not that they would be limited to those people, but it would seem that that would be a logical place to look.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott.
This is Marvel. I just want to comment. I wanted to thank you, Scott, for moving this forward and your work on this. I totally agree. This is extremely important and something that we really need to keep pushing for. Thank you.
Thank you,
welcome.
Bob.
Steve?
Yes, go ahead, Sharon.
Okay. Couple of things. I think it's a great idea. I did hear that apparently it normally requires 5 members. I wanted to know, when was it last active? Number one.
It's been a while.
Okay. But I also wanted to say that obviously during the COVID, there are a lot of other resources available to deliver food, to pick up food for the elderly, and so having one place or one organization that all of that information can be collected and then disseminated is a great idea. So I think that this Committee on Aging is a good thing.
Thank you for your comment, Sharon.
Thank you.
And I will have to look into when they were last met. I don't have that information available.
Sure. Thank you. Next up, discuss, consider, and possibly vote to approve a request from the Hopkinton Land Trust Board of Trustee Chairwoman Marilyn Grant for a waiver of the $1,020 building permit fee for building number 11154 for property located at 9 Mechanic Street, identified as Assessor's Plot 27, Lot 182B, for the construction of the Depot Square Bushy Brook Trail. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. President, for us that aren't 100% familiar with her, some of us new members like me, you, and Bob, can we get a little backstory on this? Or Lisa, can you tell us a little bit about this?
I cannot give you an awful lot of information. I did send the agenda to Marilyn Grant, the chairwoman of the Land Trust. I'm hoping that you may see raise a hand, perhaps. They would be the best ones to really fill you in. It has to do with a trail that they're putting in down by Depot Square, I believe, along the Riverwalk. And $1,020 is a large fee for a nonprofit, for the land trust who tries to use their resources for the purchase of land. So I'm hoping Marilyn Grant will ring in, or one of the other board members.
Marilyn Grant, are you in the audience? If so, could you please raise your hand? Is there anyone else in the audience who has information or any idea as far as what we're discussing here?
Steve, I believe Debbie O'Leary has got her hand raised.
Sure.
Debbie, you probably need to unmute yourself.
I just did. Thank you, Bob.
There you go.
Yeah, this project's been a while in the making. It's actually going to be an accessible trail, meaning that people in wheelchairs, strollers can use it. It was a lot of work to begin with. I would say the first day that they started to clean up along the river there, and it was a disaster. So you've got to give the volunteers a lot of credit for doing the work. I think asking for a reprieve from a building permit is the least we can do. That area is going to be beautified and actually going to be kind of a fun thing. I've been waiting 2 years for this thing to get done. It's going to be amazing. But this, getting into what Scott was talking previously about the seniors, this is going to be an excellent area for seniors to access and walk on. It's really, and most of the money going for this came from a grant, by the way, a DEM grant. So.
Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing that, Debbie. I
You're
appreciate it.
welcome.
Debbie, this is Bob Marvel. Do you know if there's a plan or like a site plan or diagram of what this proposed work or project would look like? I haven't seen anything online.
Yeah, I'm sure the Land Trust have one. I can ask Harvey for it. We're going to be meeting on Thursday, Bob. Are you going to be with us and we can go over it if he has a copy?
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any more discussion? No further discussion. Do I have a motion?
Mr. President, this is Councilor Gary. I make a motion in accordance with this to amend it forward.
Scott Billhurst, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moffat, aye.
Scott Billhurst, aye.
Davis, aye.
Motion passes. Next up, consider and vote to provide approbation for the town clerk's appointment of Marita Murray as deputy town clerk to November 2022.
Mr. President, I make a motion to give the approbation to Marita Murray to be the deputy town clerk of Hopkinton.
Mr. President, I second it.
All in favor?
Aye. And I'd just like to say Marita is a friendly presence in the town hall, and the town clerk has a great staff, and Lisa is with us tonight, but it's a pleasure to go into the Hopkinton town clerk's office. I like to give them a little razzing, and they give me a little razzing, so it's a great place.
Do you just knock on the door, or just do you have to call like the rest of us? Lies.
Can we continue with the
When I
vote?
knock on the door, they come to the door.
Thank you.
I left a box of chips out there. I'd have front door servers all the time.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Scott Billhurst, aye.
Moffat, aye.
Davis, aye. And I'd say, Marita, it would be perfect for this position. Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next up, discuss, consider scheduling a workshop regarding the petition to amend the zoning district use table to amend permitted uses for solar energy systems and to update the review and approval procedures for solar energy systems submitted by Peter Squires, Esquire, on behalf of clients Tom and Cynthia Skulko.
I sent the agenda to Attorney Squires this afternoon. I did not receive a response to that, so I just wanted him to be aware that it was on the agenda and that if there were any dates, that would be not good for him to have him.
Well, I initially sponsored this as a courtesy, although I hadn't read that, because I believe it's important the way the rules of the council are, so people can put things before the town council. Usually have to have a council member sponsoring, just in a procedural context. But and I think I know Kevin's listening. Is there any requirement for us? Is it any problem with us putting this off into the next meeting so that we can get some input from the lawyer?
This is Kevin McAllister. The agenda item that's on for tonight, I mean, there's no problem with putting that off to the next meeting to get that input. That's fine. This matter is also already scheduled for a hearing before the council sometime in January.
January 19th.
Yeah. So I don't know if you want to do that before the 19th or after or how, but this particular motion, there's no impediment to putting this off to the next council meeting, which I think is December 21st.
Yeah, I make a motion this be put on the agenda for the second meeting in December for discussion.
Can I, before you make that motion, can we discuss this some more?
Yes, we can.
I'll withdraw my motion then.
Go ahead, Sharon. I'd like to hear from you.
Okay, number one, January 19th. This proposal to the changes, these proposed changes are really, really substantial. And before we talk about it in a town council meeting, a hearing, on the 19th. I think it does deserve to be talked about in a more informal way, and I don't know if putting it off till the 21st is helpful. Putting off making picking a date is helpful. I think I'd rather pick a date now. So that we could talk about it in an informal way. And you only have like January 4th, maybe, or the 11th. I mean, those are only 2 dates in January that you're going to be able to choose prior to the 19th. If you wait till the 21st, then the only other date to talk about it, to have a workshop, would be the 28th. I mean, there's only 3 Mondays left that you could choose from. So I don't know why waiting till the 21st. I don't know. I just think we ought to pick a date.
Kevin,
it's going to take a lot, even in an informal setting. It's going to take a lot because this proposal is changing the Farm Viability Act. It's changing our solar ordinance. It's changing a lot of things in addition to changing the zoning, the zones. And so it is a very complicated thing, and I think we really do need to have time to talk about it in an informal way to make sure we totally understand the full parameters of what this proposed ordinance is before we actually get into the hearing that's on the 19th of January. And Kevin, if I'm not wrong, but once we start that hearing on the 19th, isn't the clock running for the hearing?
Yes, if I can elaborate, this is Kevin McAllister again. Councilwoman Davis is correct on everything she said. This is an enormously complicated proposal to amend the ordinances pertaining to solar projects and solar energy uses in general in the town of Hopkinton. The deadline she's referring to is there's a timetable set forth in Rhode Island General Laws 45-24-51, which requires the town council to hold its public hearing 65 days after receipt of the proposal. So that clock is ticking, and the January 19th date cannot be extended unless the applicant, through its attorney, Mr. Squirts, agree to it, but they have a statutory right to force the council to stick to the statutory timetable. So I think, I mean, this isn't really a legal opinion, but under the circumstances, because of the legal requirements, because of the complexity of this proposal, Councilwoman Davis is 100% correct. It would be best to at least pick a date tonight to have an opportunity to talk about it informally. I'm sure the applicant's attorney would make an effort to attend himself, or at least provide someone with his firm to attend at such a date. It does seem to be sort of a common sense approach to deal with this on a timely manner.
Scott Billhurst, I just think it's important that, and I believe the town clerk said she reached out to him today, and if somebody's representing somebody and there's a lawyer, they should promptly get back. Obviously, it's a serious matter because there's a clock involved as far as certain things that have to happen. But really, the people, like when I agreed to put this thing on initially, the people that you do that as a courtesy for, they have an obligation, or their attorney, to make that presentation. And after you get them through that mechanical hurdle of getting it on the agenda, So I'm a little disappointed of him not calling back unless there's an emergency. But if you think we should have a date, that's fine. But my impression, this is so monumental that probably would take more than one meeting, I would imagine, a workshop, because it seems to have so many dimensions to this that, and the concern, I can just imagine growing up in this town when you're dealing with land use issues, and you think just the solar issue alone is been significant with the large solar installations, but all these other type of matters that this potentially includes, I can just can imagine the letting the genie out of that bottle. Thank you.
Sharon, go ahead.
Can I say something else? You know, if we to do this right, because it affects the farm viability ordinance and it affects our solar ordinance, we really need to hear why the lawyer wrote it the way he wrote it, why he is totally tearing our solar ordinance out and replacing it with this, and we don't know what his replacement means relative to the solar ordinance we already have. So I had initially been going through our solar ordinance and writing in the new ordinance, okay, where he's covered the items that are in the old solar ordinance, and where the parts of the old solar ordinance do not exist anymore in his thing. And we need to do the same thing with the farm viability ordinance, because he's replacing that too. And I really think it is going to take some discussion, and I'd rather have it start informally and then go to the formal one. And I know that people, other residents, are going to want to weigh in as well. So I would suggest that we pick like the 28th of December, and that somehow reach out to the Mr. Squirts to have him give us further information of what he left out of the old ordinance, what he has now that's changed, and also about the farm viability ordinance, why he's getting rid of that in a sense, to a certain extent too. You need some input, and you need to have a lot of documents in front of you to be able to pull it all together and talk reasonably. And so I think if we pick the 28th, that we need to have copies of our farm viability ordinance, copies of our regular solar ordinance, in addition to his stuff, and we really need to kind of try to see what's in the new one, what's not in the new one, to do some homework, so we can have a reasonable workshop.
And also, in approaching this, Scott Billhurst, of how it impacts people to comply with the requirements of this, and the Farmland Viability Act, especially with small solar, was done to give some type of relief, small relief to farmers so that they would keep their property in farming. And I think that because the five of us really don't know each other that well, but I want a town of Hopkinton where everybody is welcome and can live here regardless of their household income. And if we put too many restrictions on, we could actually prevent lower income people from being able to live in this town, and many of them feel pressured as it is right now. Thank you.
This is Bob Marvel. I just want to reiterate what Councilor Davis is saying. I think this is rather large, and as Attorney McAllister said, this is rather large and complex, and I would like to sooner rather than later, start to look at this in detail and maybe get the applicant and the attorney involved so that they can take us through this proposal so that we're not making assumptions and, so that we can understand what their thinking is and why each of these items are written. So I support, Councilor Davis, with the December 28th date. I think starting a workshop earlier rather than later would be beneficial to us. Thanks.
Councilor Gary, you have a comment?
Yeah, go. Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Let me step to the Farm Viability Act on this real quick. If you go in and look, it pretty much cuts everything out that people worked on for the Farm Viability Act of 2016. There is a tremendous, and I'll say this again, there's a tremendous moving parts in this. I definitely read pretty much the whole thing this last couple of days. It talks anywhere from if you have solar mounted on your house, how many panels you can have. You cannot sell electricity back to the national grid. If your roof is, say, red, then the panels need to be red. There's a lot of stuff in here, and I think it would be wise to us to get it right. I know we're up against a time frame, but I really don't want to push it where we don't have enough time to sit down as a group and look it over. Because I'm sure public comment, I'm sure the basic people out there in the general public haven't seen this document yet. So
right.
That's what I'll say. But Councilors Sharon and Bob, I agree with you. I agree with Councilor Hurst. That's all.
Thank you, Mike. I would like to chime in here. I have read this proposed ordinance at least 2 or 3 times. I think that it is not written in stone. It is something that we need to discuss sooner rather than later. Mr. McAllister, I have one question. Do we need to wait till a regularly scheduled meeting, or can we call a special meeting to discuss this, to have a workshop on this?
You can have a workshop. It won't be this. It won't fulfill the public hearing requirement, which requires, for example, 3 weeks advertising in daily newspapers. But a workshop, you can call that at a special meeting, whenever you want. It doesn't really impact legally the scheduling of the required public hearing. From a common sense point of view, as everyone seems to have already acknowledged, it ideally would occur before the public hearing so that the council is in the public, to the extent they want to participate in the workshop, would have a better idea going into what this is all about on January 19th, when the public hearing would actually start. So you can do that, yes.
Thank you. So with that being said, I think this needs a lot of discussion. It needs a lot of input, especially input from the applicant's attorney. Again, it's not written in stone. I believe there's a lot of merit to this. I think it would complement the PSES. I don't think it's all bad. I think there's a lot of good in this document. And sure, there are things, and that's why we need a public hearing. That's why we need to have it explained to us almost word for word, so that everybody understands exactly what is in this. But I am absolutely for moving this forward in a workshop type situation. I think that would serve the town's best interest. And if you haven't read it, counselors, if you haven't read it, I would suggest you read it with a fine-tooth comb, with a highlighter, just so you're informed and mark everything out. But I think there's a lot of merit. I think it deserves discussion, and I am for setting up a workshop date sooner than later. I would like to set it up as soon as we can. If we can set up a workshop next Monday, if that's too soon, then I'd like to know from each counselor what their schedule is, because I have no problem setting up a special meeting next Monday to have a workshop.
Do we have to? publicize that or just?
Only within that time frame, but not the actual open meetings law. So
Do
you have plenty of time.
do we have enough time to invite the public in on the next one?
So if you wanted to have a workshop on the 14th, as early as the 14th, there's plenty of time to do that. The agenda would be posted on the website.
Okay.
This matter's also going forward for a hearing, so the ad will be posted pretty soon. It's got to be advertised like Gallagher mentioned. So if you wanted to have it as early as 14th, come up with.
This is Bob Marvel. I have a hard time hearing what's being said there right now.
My concern is Scott Bill Hurst about to what extent does the Attorney Swears and the Skolkos, I don't know what their schedule is. Is it crucial that they're there? Because apparently our town clerk couldn't contact them today or get through to them or their lawyer, and we could have a situation that they're not there. They put their name behind this and the lawyer did. So how important is them to be there? Because we might run into a situation that they're not going to be able to participate in this workshop.
I feel like they need to be there, Scott. That's
Absolutely, and that's why I said the 28th rather than the 14th. But
well, I mean, if it's going to be a special meeting called, we can work on each other's schedule, figure it out. We can have, hopefully the lawyer reaches back out to the town, with his schedule, and we could potentially correspond, and kind of, hash that out. I think this absolutely deserves scrutiny, good or bad. I mean, it's very important. It's something that's going to, obviously guide us moving forward as far as the solar goes. So, so we may have to, trying to think here. It would be nice to have a date. Is it possible to tentatively schedule the 28th? And then if we hear from the lawyer, scratch that and then have a special meeting? Is that something that we could do, Lisa? Do you know?
Steve, this is Bob Marvel. I would suggest maybe to flip that around and perhaps schedule the 14th and the 28th, both as potential special meetings, workshop meetings. And if we can't get representation from the applicant on the 14th, then we'll just go with the 28th and cancel the 14th. But I think that if we schedule both the 14th and the 28th, we may end up using both of those. Thanks.
Excellent. I appreciate that input, Bob, and that foresight on that. So I would like, yes, Sharon, go ahead.
I concur. I'll go with that.
Excellent. So are we all in favor here to schedule a special meeting for the 14th? Does that work for everybody? At 7 o'clock?
Workshop, you mean?
Workshop. Thank you, Scott. He's not answering. Bob, can you hear me?
Yes, this is Bob, yes.
Okay.
Bob, can you hear me? It's Mike.
Yes.
Okay, just want to check.
Can you hear Lisa?
Check.
Sharon, were you saying something?
I said we can barely hear Lisa. She's the furthest away from the it sounds like she's the furthest away from the microphone or wherever.
How's this? This is Lisa.
Yeah, yes. That's better.
Okay. So we're going to set it down for workshops for Monday the 14th and Monday the 28th. And did you want at 7 p.m. or earlier?
7's fine.
7's fine.
I will reach out to Attorney Squires. And I know that when the date was set for the hearing, he did indicate at the time, he was present during that meeting, that he'd be willing to help out in it whatever way he can. So I'm going to be optimistic that he will be able to be present for either one of those, or both.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any more discussion? All right, I'd like to close that discussion. Next on the agenda, boards and commissions. Discuss, consider, and possibly vote to appoint Daniel Baruti as full-time member of the Zoning Board of Review as requested by the Zoning Board of Review.
Mr. President, Councilor Geary,
Yes,
I would like to
Councilor
make a
Geary.
motion that we make Danny Labruti a full-time member of zoning.
Scott Bill Hurst, second.
All in favor?
Aye. Scott Bill Hurst, aye.
Moffett?
Marvel.
Davis, aye.
Motion passes. Now I'd like to open up the public forum. With a show of hands, please. If your phone number is 537-8222, please star 6 to unmute yourself. (537-8222). Star 6 to unmute yourself.
Good evening. This is Joe Morello, Depot Road. How's everyone doing tonight?
Okay.
Good, Joe. Thank you.
Good. I just wanted to say I had no idea of the passing of Chief Palmer's dad until I read the agenda for tonight's meeting. And based on that information, I was able to reach out to our chief. So I'd like to thank whoever had the idea to put that on the agenda. It was very helpful. I'd also like to congratulate David Caswell on his promotion. It's nice to see someone from within the department promoted. Anytime we've had issues with snow plowing or removal of dead trees or whatever in the town, but especially Old Depot Road, David is always in the forefront and he is right on top of that. I'd also like to thank Brian Rosso for his double duty. I've got to know Brian quite well. We've discussed issues on trying to raise revenue for the town. And also, it doesn't hurt that he's a Yankee fan, so I can appreciate that. Congratulations to Marita also. She does a great job for us. The points I'll discuss tonight are for informational purposes only, and I don't expect any discussion from the council, but that's your choice if you decide to comment that. Once I get started, I only need a couple of minutes, but I wanted to mention something that Scott was talking about on the Aging Committee. Scott and I have discussed this because we feel that myself as the Director of Public Welfare, that we can work together on this. I spoke to Brian and Chris about getting a voicemail set up for myself, and they're in the process of doing that so that we can have residents, to Steve's point, that do not have a computer or a cell phone. They can reach out to myself via a voicemail system. Lisa, prior to the election, was kind enough to put together a packet for me, so I have a lot of information. I spoke to Sharon Davis, and she gave me also a lot of information. I'm still helping a woman who's really had a difficult time. And last winter, I went over to visit her, and it was so cold in her house. I looked at the thermostat, and it was 60 degrees. And I had just changed the thermostat for her, and I asked her, I said, "Is your thermostat working? Why is it set on 60 degrees?" And she said, "Joe, I can't afford to pay the oil." So we made an appointment, went down to Tri-County, and that winter she was able to get $1,800 in heating oil assistance that she had no idea about. So there are a lot of people that do need our help. I agree with the comments on the workshop. I attended all of the workshops on the solar ordinance, and it is an impact on our residents. And I don't know if the Skolkos are just landowners or if they do have a residential property, but it's very important to get our residents involved in this. And when it comes to time for public comment or public hearing, I don't know how that's going to work. There's certainly a lot of issues trying to do these remote meetings, as you are well aware of. So I believe that's a consideration. But I just wanted to say that the last 2.5 years has been very difficult for myself and many others. I thank all the members of the past council for their many years of service to our town at a previous town council meeting. After the elections, I reached out to the new council members to congratulate them. I've spoken to Bob and Mike a couple of times. I've also spoken to and emailed Steve several times the last couple of weeks. I've been impressed with all three, and the best of luck to them. I believe our town has been divided because of the attempt to change residential property to commercial. Rhode Island, I just saw this on the evening news today. Rhode Island has the highest daily COVID cases in the country, according to the CDC COVID tracker. Rhode Island has 110 daily cases per 100,000 residents. As of Sunday night, 283,659 people in the U.S. have died of COVID. Rhode Island has lost 1,413 people, and Washington County has lost 90 people. Life is too short. When you see what's going on in the country and in the world, it really is too short. We need to unite our town again, and we need to work together to improve our quality of life in our town. My suggestion is let's start tonight. I've been impressed. Let's move forward and again try to unite our town. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Next, Debbie O'Leary. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Yes, I think the idea of having a workshop on this proposed ordinance is a very good idea. Let's just remember that it is proposed and it can be changed any way we see fit, the council sees fit. And being able to do your research before you have this workshop is very important. I was part of the Conservation Commission when we put in the revisions to the farm viability ordinance. We had a meeting with many of the farmers in town. We got their input. We had a representative from DEM. We really did a lot of work, and it was 3 workshops that we did just on that ordinance alone. So it is a lot of work and research, and I'll help you guys any way I can. And let's just make this better. Some of the things in that proposed ordinance are disturbing to me. And I just hope that we can sort through it. And thank you all for volunteering, and because even though you're elected, it's a lot of your own personal time. And Brian, you're doing a bang up job. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you for your comments, Debbie.
Thank you, Deb.
Thanks, Debbie.
Next up, Chip, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. This is Chip Hale, Clifford Hale from Chase Hill Road. First, I just wanted to congratulate and welcome the new town council members. I hadn't had a chance to do that for all of you, and you know, good luck. And we're here for you in whatever capacity. I'm here for you in whatever capacity that you need me to be. Second, I think the idea for the workshop, or as many workshops as necessary to look at this solar ordinance, is a really good idea. I think we need to make sure that the documentation is provided to the residents. Hopefully that's possible before these workshops, to make these as productive as possible. We want to give everyone a chance to come in to read this thing ahead of time and hopefully come prepared. I realize that this ordinance is much more detailed, longer than the existing one. And I realize that there are some parts of it that people may or may not like. However, I think that there are a lot of gray areas in the existing one. And from the past experience, you might say that some of those gray areas have been exploited. And we see evidence of that all over town. And I think what the best thing that we can do is try to tighten up any ordinance actually, not just the solar one, but I think this is a really good step in the right direction. So I think that I'm really glad that you guys agreed to have a workshop, and I look forward to participating in it. Third, I thought the planning board meeting this past week was frankly a travesty. Really very disappointed in how that went. And I think, and when we consider that in the context of we have residents that are volunteering a significant portion of their time to try to help this town, that we see, you know, some staff and other people in the town, it seems to be not only non-supportive, but actively working against those efforts. And that's very frustrating. I am willing to, I've applied to be on the EDC, and I will apply to be on any council, commission, board, or whatever that the town council deems necessary or helpful. But man, I'll tell you what, when you see that sort of behavior, it makes it really difficult to want to do something to help out this town. And instead of discouraging residents from participating in local government and playing an active role in our local government, we need to be encouraging them and supporting them. And we need to make sure that it's not just the town council that is supporting them, but it's the staff members, including solicitors, that are well-informed, well-educated on the concepts and issues that these volunteers may face, because they're obviously not experts in law, and they're forced to look to the experts to answer sometimes what seem to be very obvious questions. So I don't, you know, I think everyone knows how that went, and I don't need to belabor that point any further. I guess that's really all I want to say, that I hope that as a new town council, you guys can express your support of not only the planning board, but also the residents that are taking their time, much like you guys are, taking their time to do something that they see as good and helpful to this town and to this community. That's all.
Thank you, Chip.
Thanks, Chip.
Does anyone else in the audience want to speak? Please raise your hand. Not seeing any other hands. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion. We adjourn in memory of the late Gardner Palmer and those who lost their lives in the Pearl Harbor attack on December 7th, 1941, for serving the United States of America.
Thank you, Scott. Do I have a second?
Mr. President, second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Marvel, aye.
Moffat,
Scott
aye.
Billhurst, aye.
Davis, aye.
Motion passes.
Good night.
Good night, council. Thank you.
Good night.